Yes, please.
Hey everyone, welcome back to She Burbs Podcast. I am your host, Brook, Wright.
Hey everyone, welcome back to She Burbs Podcast. Today's guest is Shane. Hi Shane.
Hey, how goes it?
Welcome to my podcast. Thank you for being a guest today.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to it.
So Shane is an award-winning audio producer. So can you tell our listeners about Car Serum? Did I pronounce it right?
Car Serum, yep, that's it. It is a full cast, full sound effect, original musical score audio series. You can get it on podcasting platforms, but it's unlike most of the podcasts you've heard, which is why I call it an audio series. We have over 120 actors in this. It's much more like a mix of Game of Thrones meets Princess Bride for your ears. And it's this high fantasy world that we've created, and it's really, really exciting. Nice. We have monsters and magic, and it's all the sound design. So think of it like an epic blockbuster for your ears.
Nice, because I read The Sandman on audiobook. So is it kind of like that a little bit? A
little bit. I mean, they're both storytelling stuff. It's both fiction, but I haven't listened to Sandman a whole lot, so I can't comment too much. But some of their past stuff isn't as necessarily as full a soundscape as we try to build, or as many actors and stuff like that. But very similar. If you like it, you'll like us. If you didn't like us, you'll like us.
So what inspired this project?
I mean, I've been a fan of the audio variety for a long time. Growing up, I listened to old time radio drama from like the 40s and 50s, and I think parents were just trying to keep me off of TV. And I went to school for acting, and I've always loved entertainment, and I've written. And with this love of this old time audio, I always wanted to make it better. You know, you can do a lot of things with audio, but I don't think people understand how much you can really do. So I had done a show in 2009, and that had done really, really well. And then I just knew I wanted to do better and make everything even more epic, and push the envelope, so to speak, on what we can do with audio, what we can do with this medium. And Bill Holmes, my producing partner, and I did a version of A Christmas Carol that was all audio back in like 2011. And since then, I've been trying to find investors, raise money, and again figure out what this next project's going to be and how we can make it even more epic. And that's always been I've always and Bill has always felt that we wanted to do something that hasn't been done before. People are like, well, that's not going to work. And we're like, well, let's see if it does. I'm not going to take your word for it. Why would I believe you that I can't do something? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. People said I couldn't get tall, and I'm very tall.
That's funny. But I've never heard of that before. So is this the first time this ever happened? Like a podcast like that? Because I've never heard of it before.
I mean, I haven't found a whole lot of them that are to the degree and style that we do. I mean, fiction podcasting has been around for a long time. Again, I did a full cast sound effect thing back starting in 2009. And at that time, fiction podcasting itself wasn't even that big a thing. Like 20% of people in the US knew what a podcast was. But there's always storytelling. Storytelling's been around forever. It's the oldest art form. And there's a large community of people doing fiction podcasting. Some of it is people just reading stories. There are some that are full cast things that are, I like to say that there's a lot of different varieties of it. A lot of people put everything into audio drama, and I don't believe that. I think that there's books on tape. That's all audio storytelling. There's, play readings. That's all audio storytelling. Then you start adding small amounts of ideas of sound effects. You have some footsteps, but you don't have a full soundscape. Then people put in background sound. So it's just adding more and more and more into what we do. And like I said, I mean, I will put up our project against anybody to the epic degree that we do it. And there's still more that we want to do. That's the great thing about where we're at as an audio society, if you will. You know, people are looking more and more into this, and it's like, well, what can we do next? Well, we did that. What can we push? You know, people didn't think the amount of times I sat down with somebody and they go, so nobody's going to listen to this. So tell me why I should care. I'm like, well, you clearly shouldn't. I can't talk you into caring about things. You've already decided that it's a bad idea, but we've won a number of awards. We're in a bunch of festivals, and people seem to really enjoy it.
Nice. So how did it come together though? Like, was it hard getting all those people together, like getting the roles and all that? Like, how long did it take for you to do that?
So starting from when we like, all right, it's go time. We got together about 6 people, 6 friends that we knew, and we had some writers' weekends. And we actually we outlined the entire first season. And then I took those outlines, flushed it out, and then I started divvying up. There were about 3 of us mainly that would take episodes and write the dialogue and actually write the scripts. And then I would take them and I would change it to make sure that it all fit together and it was the same voice and all this stuff. And that took a year and a half to do that, because nobody's getting, paid. We're not paying people to quit their jobs or anything like that. We're giving little bits of money here and there. But then we started recording, and that took... So we started recording in, I think, January of 2018. No, 2020, I think. And we had our first writers' weekend in 2018. So we actually recorded people one at a time, especially because the pandemic hit. And it took, we started recording then, pandemic hit, we kept going. We were supposed to launch in April. We ended up waiting until September to launch. And that whole time we were recording and we were designing and we were editing. And then we didn't actually finish, the final episode of season 1 until like April of the following year. And we were putting them out once a week. So we were trying to get ahead of ourselves, and then we would get backed up because there was, we wanted to make an episode even better. And giving ourselves deadlines was a blessing and a curse, because it makes us, kind of compromise a little bit, but also just get things out and force us to sit down and go, really, what is going to happen? Because when we had so much time since we pushed the launch, we got very specific, and, it was always changing. And so I was like, well, I want to listen to it next week and make sure that I didn't want to change something now. So, the perfection is a lion chasing its own tail.
Wow.
I had somebody tell me once that there's no such thing as a perfectionist. It's just somebody that can always find fault with things. And I took that to heart, because you always want to make things better. But if you do that constantly, you're never going to put it out. And I like to think of things as it's always my second to last project, because when it's your first project or your last project, you have such an attachment to it where, you want to fight everybody, and you're like, well, this is my opus and all those things. And the product suffers because of it, because if you put so much ego into those things, it's really going to destroy the project, and it's not going to be fun. And it comes down to that. It comes down to the audience. It doesn't matter whose opinion is right and wrong. It's just something fun to do. And we want to make it as best as we can, but we don't want to not put it out because we're like, it's not everything, because you can always find fault in something.
Wow. So someone asked the question. Hold on. Let me see if you can see it. Can you see it?
Yeah. Philip Parker.
Okay. Yeah. He asked you a question.
What do you think the hardest atmosphere? The hardest atmosphere. Ooh. Um, you know that I had a very hard time. So in our series, the hardest one I had to come up with was a stadium. And it wasn't because it was like they're sort of like a Roman stadium with a lot of people and people are shouting. The reason I had such a hard time with that is because our perspective was on people fighting in the arena.
Oh.
And I guess a sword fight is probably, but our perspective was on those people. So not only did we have to convey the sword fighting and the dialogue that was happening there, but we had people screaming from the background in the stands who we also needed to convey where they were, the location of them, and still hear what they were saying. So it's not necessarily about the background sound space. It's about the proximity that is, I would say, the hardest thing to do in that situation. But, fights in general, while it's not necessarily atmosphere, are difficult because we have a lot of those, but we actually choreograph out the fights. Because you have to be so specific. You have to be so specific because you don't have to see what I actually design. But if I'm not specific about what I'm designing and what it looks like, it's going to be a lot harder for you to come up with anything. I hope that answered your question. Underwater is hard. Underwater was tricky because it's all gubbly and everything sounds different.
Ooh, I can't wait to listen to this. And it's on all podcast platforms like Spotify and everything.
Spotify, everything. If you type in Carcerem, CARCEREM, on any of those platforms, or you can just go to carceremtheseries.com, and all of our links are up there as well.
Nice. So you all finished the first season, you said. So there are going to be more seasons. How many more seasons are you talking?
Well, that's our hope. It's always by the seat of our pants. It's not like we have backing of big companies or anything. But I mean, we're going to start writing season 2 next weekend, actually. So we're hoping that. I don't know. I have an idea in my head of how many seasons, but I don't want to say. Because A, if it doesn't happen, people are going to get mad at me. Or B, if somebody says, well, make 12, I'll be like, what? So
I saw your list of cast. Like, you have some amazing cast members. Like, I saw Piper Laurie on there. I'm like, oh man, he knows her. But
she shows up. She shows up in the first 2 episodes, I think. Yeah, we have an amazing cast. It's incredible. And like I said, we're not giving everybody a bunch of money to pay them. Bill Holmes, who's an amazing director as well, he has been in this voiceover community for a very long time. He's from Chicago. He's directed most of these people he was coming up as they were coming up. And so a lot of them, some of them found out what we did with Christmas Carol and were like, anytime you guys do something else, give me a call. That was awesome. And a lot of them are just friends of his and have become friends of mine. And they are just the most amazing, honest, kind, generous people who were like, yeah, I'll be a part of this. This sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Piper Laurie is the nicest. If anybody doesn't know, she was the mother in Carrie. She got Oscar nominated for The Hustler. And
the faculty.
There you go. I mean, she was in Twin Peaks twice, which is a trivia question. I mean, she was 2 different parts in Twin Peaks. But she did her book on tape, or audiobook here, and that's how Bill got to know her, and it's pretty great.
Nice. Well, I want to thank you so much, Shane, for coming on my podcast today and chatting with me.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. And like I said, hit me up anytime. If people have questions, you can find me all over the place.
All right. You have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey everyone, I want to thank you all so much for listening to my interview with Shane. So if you would like to check out the audio thing, I guess, the audio movie, I guess, then you can go to my website. I have linked it below. Hold on, let me get it on. That's my website. It's Tinkering Below. Just go on my website and you can find Shane and he's an award-winning audio producer, and you can just check out his new podcast series, which I think is really cool. So I hope you all have a great day, make great choices, and thank you all so much for listening to my podcast and for supporting me. Have a great day.